Hello teachers, learners, and parents. Sir Jeff po, at your service. Alam nyo ba na meron tayong website na tinatawag na DepEd Commons? Ang DepEd Commons ay binuo upang gawing accessible ang pagtuturo at pag-aaral dito sa ating bansa gamit lamang ang inyong mga smart devices gaya ng cellphones, tablets, at computers. Dito ay maaari nating ma-access ang iba't ibang learning materials mula sa Department of Education. Meron itong mga interactive materials, electronic self-learning modules, at instructional video lessons mula sa DepEd TV na tiyak na makatutulong sa pag-aaral ng mga mag-aaral galing ka man sa public o private school. Walang problema dahil welcome ang lahat dito. Para ito sa mga guro, magulang at mga mag-aaral mula sa kinder hanggang grade 12, Alternative Learning System o ALS, at pati na rin ang special education. At huwag kang mag-alala dahil kahit walang load ay maaari mong ma-access ang mga learning materials. Tama! Libre ito. Ang kailangan mo lamang gawin ay i-on ang iyong data at buksan lamang ang iyong browser at i-type ang commons.deped.gov.ph. Alam na ba ng iyong mga kasamahang guro o mag-aral ang tungkol sa DepEd Commons? I-share mo na ang video na ito upang matuto rin sila kung paano gagamitin ang DepEd Commons sa mabilis at napakadaling paraan. Muli, ito po si Sir Jeff at kita-kits po tayo sa DepEd Commons. Paalam!
Magandang araw, Sir Wilbur po, at your service. Narito ang ETULay upang gabayan ka sa inyong pag-aaral upang lubos na maunawaan ang iba't ibang paksa o subject. Ang ETULay ay isang free online tutorial class na pinangungunahan ng ICT's Educational Technology Unit sa pamumuno ni Undersecretary Elaine Del B. Pascua. Ang programang ito ay hindi lamang para sa mga bata, kundi ito rin ay magsisilbing gabay sa mga magulang at mga guro kung paano nila ituturo o gagabayan sa bawat asignatura ang kanilang mga anak o mga estudyante. Sa kasalukuyan, ang self-learning module mula sa rehiyon ng Calabarzon at kilala sa tawag na pivot ang ginagamit sa ating ETULay online class. Kaya ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Ihanda na ang inyong mga ballpen o lapis, papel o kwaderno at samahan kaming itulay ang pagkatuto para sa bawat batang Pilipino. Sama-sama tayong magtutulungan para malampasan ang mga hamon sa panahong ito. Halina't matuto kasama ang inyong online tutor sa oras na ito.
Hello, senior high school learners. Happy Tuesday, Choose English Day. And I am Tutor Jamie, and I will be guiding and sharing knowledge about creative writing. So get ready as we amplify the levels of our imagination and use it in writing literary pieces in our most creative way. For today's session, we will be dealing with the socio-political context and some concepts used in literary criticism and analysis. But before we go to that, let us first recollect and reconnect with our previous lesson. So medyo mabigat ba ang ating introduction today, senior high school learners? So don't worry, I will try my best to explain this to you to the most of my knowledge. Ayan. So ready na ang ating presentation there. So right now, we will do a recollection and a reconnection with our previous creative writing lesson last week. So we actually talked about drama elements, techniques, and devices. I'll be using an application, dear students, no? And then although you can just answer your question, you can just send in your answers to the chat box, and then I will acknowledge you po. Okay? Let me just give me a moment po ha. Ayan. Pag technology talaga and live. Ayan. So let's do this one. So all you have to do is to answer the questions and yung best answers po ninyo based on what we had last week. Okay? This drama technique is also known as the on-the-spot creativity skill. So what is it? Body language and mannerism, improvisational techniques, use and awareness of space, or vocal dynamics. Ano kaya ang sagot? If you answered improvisational techniques, let's see, you are correct. Okay, so let's power up. Next, we have our second question. This type of irony is committed when one says something different from what is truly meant. Is it verbal irony, dramatic irony, or situational irony? If you answered verbal irony, you are correct. Ayan. So, thank you po sa mga sumasagot. Next question. The following are included in Aristotle's 6 drama elements except for plot, audience, theme, or spectacle. Nag-usapan din natin yan. Okay? So, if you answered audience, and you are correct as well. Sino na ba ang namumuro dyan? This is the fourth question. It is an art form meant to be performed on stage or live audience. What is it? Is it poetry, film, drama, or fiction? Of course, if you answer drama, then you are correct. Ayan, so sino na ba nakakalamang? For the last question, it is a genre of drama that deals with the loss of life or protagonist's downfall due to flaws. What is that? Is it melodrama, tragic comedy, or tragedy? Okay, so if you answered tragedy, let's see if you're correct. And you are so correct. Okay, thank you. So that's the end of our review. I'm glad na most of you have answered correctly. No? So that means we were able to recollect and reconnect successfully. Ayan. So thank you for your answers. No? Miss Rochelle Malabao, Shekaina Dasha M. Pamat, Karit Joy Slowly. Very unique ang mga and creative ang mga names nyo on FB, and I really appreciate that. By the way, before we move on, I would like to shout out the hardworking STO Caloocan headed by our super supportive STS, Dr. Losaria, and to my Caloocan City Business High School family headed by our OIC Principal, Dr. Ivy Perez. Ayan. So, as we move on with our lesson, so we have, ayan. Last time I asked you to do this. Ito yung iniwang kong parang assignment for most of you. Did you happen to try this? If you have, can I have some comments or some sharing of ideas in what you have done so far? I ask you to be a drama critic, no, for kahit isa lang. So you have to find a short drama skit on YouTube and then enlist some elements, devices, and techniques that you may find, and then we are going to analyze the elements, the devices, and the techniques used, and how it has affected the performances and the plot, the overall plot and performances of drama, of the skit itself. Okay, so some of you may have done this, Okay, so some of you may have done this, and you may want to try this at any time, no? Basta nakapanood kayo ng something like a drama or a series, no? This can also be used even on movies or mga K-pop, K-drama natin na madalas nating pinapanood, no? Yun. So, we can also have this exercise. Okay? So now we move on to our lesson. So socio-political, parang tama ba itong pinasukan namin, Tutor Jamie? Parang iba na yatang lesson yan. Okay, so let's see what socio-political means. It's actually an adjective, and as per Merriam-Webster Dictionary, it's the combination of social and political factors. So when we say social, it has to deal with the behavior of the society and the elements and then factors that make up our society. The same with political. When we say political, it has the influence of politics. No, pasensya na if we are being off with our with English, no? So parang napupunta na tayo sa philosophy. But then these are actually related, no? There. And then we also have social political issues. So when we say social political issues, ang nasa isip natin lagi is problema, no? Kasi nga issue. So we relate it to that. But actually, everything is of social political, meaning lahat is affected by social political. Like for example, itong ating mandatory wearing of face shield, no, aside from the face mask. So may question ako dito. How does the wearing of mask become a social political issue? No? So anyone who wants to share their ideas can actually send their messages on the chat box or on the comment section there. No? So paano nagiging social political issue ang wearing of mask, no? Social because the wearing of mask, it's something that is new to us, to everyone, no? It was normally when we wear mask, most of that dati, no, pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, we just use that. Well, ang mga taong gumagamit talaga niyan is yung mga nasa ospital, no? And it's something that you don't wear outside of hospitals. And in some culture, like in Japan, as I have heard, they are used to wearing masks kahit basta meron silang sipon or they have colds or they have something, yung kumbaga bad yung kanilang health, no, or may nararamdaman sila. It's to protect themselves and also others. Pero dito sa Pilipinas, pre-COVID, we are not used to that. That's why we call it part of our new normal. And that is how it affects our society. Everybody is now using it. So it becomes uh, um, how somehow we get used to it and somehow we are used to it. Sanay na tayo. Parang wala na tayo nakikita sa labas na hindi nag-wear ng mask. So it affected us in the way of our lives in our society. It becomes a political issue kasi sino ba ang nag-mandate niyan? Diba yung ating government? And of course, they have their justification on why we need to wear masks as well as face shield. Kasi syempre for our own safety and of course to protect also not only ourselves but others as well. Kasi that's one way of battling or not getting the coronavirus para hindi tayo magkaroon ng COVID. So it becomes a political issue kasi nagko-combine na yung effect nung mandatory wearing of face shield sa factors ng society and also sa political. Meron siyang factors ng society and meron din siyang factors ng politics or ng political. Okay? So, yeah, hindi lang siya basta social issue na lang. No, hindi na lang siya basta sa society na lang natin, na gusto na lang natin mag-wear ng mask. But it's actually mandatory. Kapag lumabas ka, you don't wear a mask, sisitahin ka because it's already mandated. Okay? There. So that's how socio-political issues are influenced a lot of things. Now we go to social-political context, which is actually the topic for today. Pag sinabi, ano naman to, Tutor Jamie? So kanina socio-political, naging socio-political issue. Ngayon naman context. Is actually the same. It's just different of term. So I have two definitions here of socio-political context. So it refers to how social and political factors influence literature. So when we say socio-political context, ang nasa isip na dapat natin is how it affects or it influences our literature, whether it's poetry, whether it's drama, it's a story, or film. No? So, lahat it has to do with, meron siyang factor ng social-political. And then this can be determined, determining the social-political context or the influence of social and political approaches. No? So we would know how politics is actually a factor for the making of a drama play, of a poetry, or of a story when we try to criticize or analyze the literary piece, no? Yun lang yung tawag doon, criticism, analysis. So it's more so the same sila. Okay? There. Yan. So how these plays, how these drama are actually motivated, created through social political context. Yun yung ating itatackle today. There. So what is literary criticism and what is it for? Tutor Jamie, ang hirap na nga umintindi ng literary pieces, i-criticize pa. Okay. I know that some of us may have a hard time understanding some of literature, particularly drama or poetry, especially if, and like stories, diba? Especially if we are not append with its nature, or yung hindi natin alam kung ano yon, or we cannot relate to the poetry, to the message of drama, basta pinapanood lang sa atin, no? Especially for our learners. But literary criticism actually helps in the appreciation of the piece. So mas ma-appreciate natin, mas magugustuhan natin, mas maiintindihan natin ang literature, ang piece of literature, for example, ang isang drama play, if we are able to literary criticize it, no? So, ang sabi ng isang professor, an English professor ni si Nadia Von Evers, sabi niya, analyzing literature helps illustrate for students that successful art may involve self-expression, but to a greater purpose beyond the creator, whether to inform, to invoke empathy, to inspire, or simply to entertain. What does this mean? For some learners, and even for some teachers, no, educators, we just see literature as something that we read, something that we watch or we hear, no? But when we do literary criticism, we go beyond those factors or those doings. We try to see how that literature tries to involve self-expression, paano ginamit ng author yung poem to set his self-expression, paano siya nakipag-communicate with his readers, with his viewers, no? Para sabihin kung ano yung nararamdaman niya. And also, paano tayo nai-inform ng isang piece, halimbawa ng isang short story or ng isang novel, on why it was created, and then when was it created? What is the condition during those time na the literary piece was created? So, yun yung mga bagay na we have to dig into. And one way to do that is to do the literary criticism or literary analysis. Okay, so parang nagdidig into tayo. Literary criticism would be para siyang pala, no, na ginagamit natin para hukayin Yung pag naghahanap tayo ng something valuable or ng treasure. Okay? There are several, there are a lot, actually, not several, literary criticism or approaches that we are actually using. Pero with creative writing, I would like to concentrate on three, especially na yun yung madalas na gamitin and mentioned on the module. Actually, by the way, the module that I use is from SDO Caloocan. Yeah. So there are three that I would like to concentrate right now. One would be formalism. The other is reader response. And lastly would be historicism. We may find such terms na familiar sa atin or kung hindi man, baka iba lang yung term na alam natin but it's actually the same. Most of the approaches po kasi, my dear learners, are actually intertwined. Parang iba lang yung term pero halos napaka-thin yung line ng difference nila. Pero halos pare-pareho lang. Okay, so we go to formalism first. So when we say formalism, it's actually literature. It reads literature as something that is unique, a unique form of human knowledge that needs to be examined on its own terms. So unique siyang product ng human intellect. That is how formalists see literature. No. Some of in junior high school or even in senior high school, when we read out a story or when we study a story, kung yun ang topic natin, most of the time, ang unang tanong is, what is the story about? Or we go directly to the elements of the story or of the short story. Without knowing it, no, that is actually a formalistic approach in reviewing the story or the literature. Formalistic approach na yon kasi we review the literary piece only yung nakikita natin kung ano lang talaga siya, whether kung siya ay short story ba, kung poem ba siya, drama ba siya, or film ba siya. So we review, we analyze each literary piece by how or what its genre is or anong form siya. Fiction ba siya, non-fiction? So we gather all those information and that's how we deal with formalism or formalist criticism. Okay. Actually, may examples ako dito. There. So, I have here an example of, this is a short story. No, it's from Japan. It's by Ryunosuke Akutagawa. Some of you may have read this. No, I actually made a formalistic approach on this one in a grove. And what I dealt with was the structure. No? So pag formalism, ang titignan natin is yung pinaka surface lang niya. We will not dig into a deeper meaning pa. So yung ano lang, yung characters. So since this is a short story, what we are going to tackle would be what we are going to ask when we are doing formalism approach is that what is its structure? Anong literary structure niya? Is it fiction or non-fiction? So, yun yung isa sa mga tatanungin natin. So, this In a Grove is actually a non-fiction. And then, what is it for? What is its form? No? Is it an essay? Is it a prose? Is it a poetry? A drama? Is it a film? Actually, In a Grove was adapted into film, no, in Japan, and it actually won awards in a lot of international competition. And so this is a short story. So yung In a Grove, its story is about 7 accounts of a murder. So may pinatay, tapos merong 7 na kwento about dun sa pinatay. Iba't ibang episodes. I mean, not episodes, but iba't ibang anong tawag niyan, yung accounts. How do we say that? Iba't ibang version. There, thank you. Iba't ibang version ng uh, ng ng story, kung paano namatay, sinong pumatay, yun, no? And then another one that we can actually ask when we are doing formalism would be, what is the literary element? So since this is a short story, what are the literary elements that we have for a short story? 'Di ba? My dear viewers, ano po yung mga literary elements natin when we are dealing with short story? You can actually comment your answers. Diba, dyan yung lagi natin tinatanong or laging natatanong sa atin ng English teacher natin na what is the setting of the story? Who are the characters? No? And then also, what is the point of view? Okay, give the plot. Yun yung mga yon. Pag formalism, most probably, ito lang yung we only scratch what is the facade of literature, of the literary piece. Hindi tayo masyado nagdi-dig in deeper, no? Kung ano lang yung nasa ibabaw, yun lang yung formalism. We analyze the literature, the literary piece by by its genre, by its structure, by its form, and by the literary elements based on the form na napapaloob siya. So if this is drama, babalikan natin yung elements na pinag-usapan natin last time. That would be like the setting, no, not the setting, but the plot, the character, the dialogue, and all those. So ganun po, no? Hopefully yun po ang sa formalism. So not really scratching or not really digging deeper, but we appreciate the literary piece on its form lang. Yung pinaka-itsura niya lang sa labas. Okay? That's how I would want to term it. Okay? Next. Okay, let's try applying formalism on the famous Ibong Adarna. So for your answers po, just type in on the comment section. Okay. So is Ibong Adarna fiction or non-fiction? So here we are doing formalistic approach. No? If you answered fiction, then you are correct. Of course, we all know that Ibong Adarna is a fiction lang. No? It's not real. It's something na a product of a very good imagination of the author. No, very good. Thank you for your answer. Correct po, si Joy Slowly. Yeah. Okay. And then we have, what is the literary form of Ibong Adarna? What is its literary form? Okay? Ano kaya? Anong uri ng literatura to as we have in Filipino? This is actually poetry, diba? Particularly, it's a corrido. It's corrido, no? So, we're doing formalism, ha? So, we ask what is its structure? Ano yung form ng niya? Is it fiction or non-fiction? No? Ginawa ba siya kathang isip or based on a true story or true to life, ano, diba? But this time we have a literary form. What is the literary form of Ibong Adarna? It's actually a poetry, a corrido. Ayun. And then since it's poetry, we would ask what are the elements of this poetry or of this corrido. And its kind is actually an epic poem. No? It's an epic poetry, and it has measure. This is what makes formalism common, no, and familiar to us. Kasi most of the time, we deal with its structure, like for example sa poetry. Titignan natin dito yung measure niya, ilan ang sukat, how many syllables, how many lines, no? Of course, we also have the elements of what figure of speech are used, yung tayutay na ginamit dito sa Ibong Adarna. So, those are all the elements of poetry that are answered or that are figured when we do formalism or formalistic approach. Ayan. So, watching from Lana Elementary School, thank you po. Watching from Tuburan, from Tacloban City, thank you very much po. Okay. Now, we go to reader response. From the term alone, reader response analysis or criticism. Of course, sino ang involved dyan? Of course, our readers, or in the case of drama, yung viewers natin. And how do we get reader response? We get reader response from if it's film, yung mga readers, yung mga reviews na lumalabas with film, right? Yung mga critics ng film. If it's poetry, then when we ask our students, for example, yung or we are asked by our teachers na you have to give your response or your opinion or your interpretation with the poem that was given to you. Okay, there. So with reader response, it takes literature as something that exists as a transaction between the piece or the literary piece and the mind of the reader. So merong relasyon yung ating isipan, yung ating mind with the literary piece, no? So that's reader response. Yun yung tinitignan natin sa reader response. This is also known as the impressionistic approach. No? So yung impression from the term itself. Yung impression natin with the literary piece that was given to us for analysis. Okay? Yan. I have here by the way, reader response, since it's reader response and yung analysis ng reader, ng viewer, no, or ng critic, reader response is actually influenced by these factors. First, syempre, yung religion, and then yung race, yung race or yung culture, and of course, the core values. No? So, the reader response varies depending on the readers or the person's orientation when it comes to religion, kung siya ba ay Katoliko, Hudyo, Muslim, or any other religion. No? It is also influenced kung saang panig ng mundo ka. Like for example, if you are a Westerner, you would have a different culture and a different culture and a different upbringing. So you would have a different response to a literary piece. And of course, the core values. No, our core values are actually our core values affect how we think, how we react to certain situations. And what more so sa isang literary piece. No? So those are the things that are actually that are influencers when you do reader response. Okay. I actually did a reader response criticism on an essay on borrowing money. And this, ang ginawa ko dito is that I asked someone, a co-teacher of mine, to read on the essay and help me with the reader response. This is the response that I got. No? That on borrowing money, from the title itself, is an essay of Shiko, a Japanese origin, contemporary writer, who actually talks about the feeling of the person who is borrowing money and the person who is lending the money. And then I gave the essay to a co-teacher, and then this is what she had to say. No, the essay itself gives a wider and better view of both ends and the whole complexity of the situation, with all the moral dilemmas and conflicts that come with it. In a way, it makes me understand how one feels when borrowing money and how this circumstance becomes a weight of burden to the lender. Okay, so I would like to think na the orientation of my reader is, syempre kasi professional siya, she is a teacher, and more so, um, she has a very good grasp in literature, no? So mas talagang very in-depth yung kanyang respond doon sa essay. Whatever she has to say here is actually influenced by how she was brought up, no? Na kung mahilig ba siyang manghiram, mag-borrow or hindi. Kung mabilis ba siyang umintindi, if she understands people that and knows that there are people who needs money more than others, no? So this is an example of a reader response that I did, and it actually gave a good response kasi it shows how the essay was able to help na yung aking co-teacher was able na mabago or parang ma-influence yung kanyang paniniwala when it comes to borrowing money. So, may influence yung literary piece doon sa reader. Okay? Don't feel bad if halimbawa may pinabasa sa inyo tapos parang walang effect sa inyo. Don't feel bad kasi again, with the reader response, it actually depends on your orientation, based on culture, based on the core values, and on your religion. Ikaw yun eh. So, hindi yun dapat saklawan. No? So, whatever your response, it's actually valid. No? It's valid. So, don't feel bad. Okay? Next, this is the third approach. It's historicism and historical criticism. So from the term alone lang, we have this idea na this is based on history. No? So with historicism naman, this one investigates the social, cultural, and intellectual context that produce the piece or the literary piece. Like for example, if it's drama, well, most of drama kasi are actually based, not all but most of the known dramas are actually based on another literary piece. Like for example, adapted siya from a novel, from a short story, sometimes poetry pa, diba? So parang it was just given a different flavor or a different form by the author or by the playwright. Okay? So baka mamaya kasi sabihin nyo, ano ba talaga ang pinag-uusapan natin, Tutor Jamie? Drama ba? Or it's actually the literature as a whole. Okay? So let's look at this one, Dekada 70. If we look deeper, this Dekada 70 is actually a Luwalhati Bautista novel. And this was put into a lot of play adaptations na sa teatro na rin ito, no, kasi napakaganda rin ito. It actually has a movie, no, sila Christopher De Leon and Vilma, am I correct? Parang Vilma Santos. I watched it kasi a long time ago, no. So it was adapted already in movies, no. It's a story about the struggle of a family who apparently were very vocal or like activists in the time of martial law. Okay? So, historically based, paano pumapasok ang historicism dito or historical criticism? We dig deeper into what had happened during the time na sinulat ito. No, during that time na nung dekada 70, what is happening in that particular setting or in that particular place that had evoked or had given motivation for the writer to create such literary piece. Parang ganun lang. Parang another example, a classic example would be Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, which we dubbed as parang immortal, no? Immortal pieces ni Dr. Jose Rizal. Why immortal? Because until up to now, the struggles, the issues that are being that were mentioned here by Rizal are still happening, no? Somehow still happening in our time. So we may term it as something immortal, no? Sino ba naman ang hindi nakakaalam ng no limit ang nangyari diyan at yung nangyari sa El Filibusterismo. We have that for with English Filipino literature, no? So historicism wise, we all know what happened during the time that Rizal has created and has completed these two novels of his. So uh, basically, history, what happens in our society during that period or during a certain period can actually evoke us or can actually motivate us to create a very good or a classic or an immortal like this one, an immortal piece. And in order for us to do that, we should know our history. So kaya magkakarugtong yan eh. So we don't really look at our subjects like yung AP, yung history, and then yung English, and then yung Filipino as something that are different from each other. Somehow we can put them all together and create literary pieces like this. Okay, there. So those basically are the approaches that are used in determining the socio-political and the literary influences and appreciation of a literary piece or literature. No? So, um, what does this give? What does this had to do with the top with us as creative writers? No? Let's put it this way. So, kasi baka mamaya tanongin nyo, ano naman, gusto ko lang naman mag-create ng story. I just want to write a drama or a play. Why do I need to know these things? Let's just put it this way. For example, you are going to build your dream house. No, you are going to build your dream house. So with building your dream house, you start with like visualizing what you want your dream house to look like, and then you start to plan. No, with the planning comes the you test, 'di ba? Meron pa yung test yung lupa, meron pa diyan yung you test uh, uh, ano tawag yan, you ask for permission if you could build a house there, no? And more so, you have to acquire the land kung saan may tatayo. Meaning there is a lot more, there's a lot of planning, a lot of visualization before you can build your house. It's the same with creative writing. Although we feel na parang, my dear students, no, we feel that there is no need for us to understand these approaches. We might want to think twice. Kasi if we only create without really understanding the nature of what we create, medyo baka hindi kagandahan ang kalabasan. Maybe we would, baka magsayang lang tayo ng pagkakataon or ng oras or ng skill, no? There is no harm in knowing more and then doing something that we think is best, no? So knowing these approaches would help us work on a literary piece creatively, no? Especially in writing. So with that, I hope I have given you some knowledge, no? Hindi naman lahat, but some knowledge uh, about creative writing and literary and socio-political context. And if you have some questions, you can actually just comment here, and we can actually talk about it by next week. And for that, I would like to close my session and bid you see you next week, I think. No, and thank you for today. God bless. Stay safe.
Sigurado ako na marami ka na namang natutuhan sa ating ETULay tutorial session ngayong araw. Tandaan, ito ay hindi lamang para sa ating mga mag-aaral, kundi pati rin sa ating mga minamahal na guro at mga magulang na kaagapay natin para maituloy ang pagkatuto sa kabila ng nararanasang pandemya. Patuloy ding sumubaybay sa DepEd TV para sa mga araling ginawang video episodes. Mapapanood ito mula Lunes hanggang Sabado, alas 7 ng umaga hanggang alas 7 ng gabi sa inyong mga telebisyon. Abangan bukas mula 1:00 ng tanghali ang iba pang aralin sa ating ETULay free online tutorial session sa Filipino. I-like and subscribe at manatiling nakasubaybay sa ating ETULay tutorial session sa DepEd Edtech Unit FB page at Educational Technology Unit channel sa YouTube at sa DepEd Tayo at DepEd Philippines social media accounts. Paalam!